Welcome to the PROUST Questionnaire.
35 questions giving us insight into what makes creative people tick.
Bonjour, Uli. How are you?
Oh, Caroline, it is a pleasure to see you today.
You sound like some of the professors we took classes from in graduate school together, that very strong Pepe Le Pew accent that I sometimes feel I should have cultivated as a French professor. But yes, it's a French kind of day because we have a French kind of guest.
Yes, exciting. Tell us about the guest, because you've actually done a lot of events and activities at the Albertine bookstore in New York City, which is the bookstore for French books, Francophone literature, culture in Manhattan.
Yes, and our guest today, Miriam Bridenne, is the deputy director of the Albertine bookstore, and it's a very special place. It's devoted to French books in both French and English, and it's really become an outpost of French and Francophone culture in New York City. It's housed in the Cultural Services Building of the French Embassy on the Upper East Side. Albertine has an active Instagram and Twitter presence. It's all one word. Albertine Books is the handle. And yeah, I got to know Miriam from doing events at Albertine. As a French literature professor and the author of some books about French literary figures. My most recent book, Proust Duchess, was on Marcel Proust. The one before that, Queen of Fashion, was about Marie Antoinette. And Albertine Books is also really a wonderful supporter of authors like me who've devoted their life to the study of French literature, history, and culture. And my favorite experience with Miriam is the fact that she and I have co-hosted and co-run some of the Albertine French book club meetings together over the last few years. So Miriam, as she'll tell us, I'm sure when we talk to her today, is an absolute bookworm, book fanatic, loves reading, reads everything, and really has that gift that I think you and I as professors aspire to have, of making books come alive for the people that she's talking to and discussing the books with. So she was just a delightful person to do these book club meetings with at Albertine in their beautiful space designed by the famous French interior designer Jacques Garcia. And I think she'll be a really, really interesting and delightful person for us to speak with today.
So I think that's really wonderful, and that kind of bookstore, that presence in New York City, but for a lot of people around the world can really tune in because they have, as you said, book clubs and readings. So we'll repeat this. It's Albertine Books, so ALBERTINE Books on Twitter or on Instagram. You can find out what they're doing. You can also get some ideas for things to read that maybe don't come across in your Amazon recommendations. And I also want to point out your Instagram is Caroline Weber 2020, the numerals 2020, and the PROUST Questionnaire has an Instagram page. It's proust.questionnaire. I'm on Instagram, Uli NYC, Uli Baer Twitter. I just dabble in French literature and teach Baudelaire kind of surreptitiously without being appointed in a French department. So I have my own favorites. So I just do the kind of I sort of like I sneak in and have conversations with you about Proust, although no one authorized me to do that ever. So
I think that's the joy of our job at our age, Uli, which is being professors in our 50s now. Nobody's going to tap us on the shoulder anymore and tell us we're not allowed to do that. I like to kind of sneak into your world surreptitiously and occasionally try to teach Hölderlin or Nietzsche, or Kafka. So it's fun, these kind of cross-cultural exchanges you and I get to have in our classrooms. And Miriam, for me, really epitomizes that for New York City. She is at the center of, and she meets every French writer who comes to New York, every important figure in French culture. She's also, I believe, a kind of an active contributor to their social media presence. And so she's really somebody who will help us in this age of lockdown and where we're all stuck at home. And for the last 30 years, I've been traveling every summer to France. I won't get to do it this summer. This is someone who will really, I think, open some windows on the world for us today.
Yeah, so it's great. So we'll have a conversation. It started with Proust with someone who's representing French culture in the world. First of all, Miriam, thank you so much for being here and joining Caroline and me on the PROUST Questionnaire.
Hello, Miriam. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for having me.
And it's great to see you on Zoom. So you're in Brooklyn, I'm in Manhattan, Caroline is in Connecticut. I saw on your Instagram, Carrie, that you are putting vegetables out in the garden. So that's exciting. I was very envious about that.
I am, yeah. And I just did a vegetable and herb exchange with my neighbors down the street. They brought me an incredible loaf of freshly baked bread and just some arugula. And I gave them, all of the herbs and vegetables that were edible in my garden. So I need to find a way to get some of that back to you all in the city. I planted this stuff because I was afraid it would be hard to get out to get groceries and things. And it's come in handy.
To see, and the same thing that I looked at, Albertine, you guys are doing readings and events during the lockdown. So that's great that you can see you kept on being busy, right?
We kept on being busy. Actually, we kept two kinds of events up. Children story hour with Hervé Toulet. We had two workshops that were really fun, and we also kept the book club, which moved on Zoom, and it's been pretty lovely to be able to keep a connection with our members, keeping them engaged with books, with literature, and yeah.
So we're going to put those links to Albertine Books.
Thank you so much
on our podcast, of course, and Caroline Weber 2020. People can look at your vegetables also on Instagram, which is
I'm not selling them yet, but if the university folds, that might be in my future.
Exactly. So I'm going to start. I think I'll start today. Is that okay? So I'll start with the first question. Miriam, what is your idea of perfect happiness?
My idea of perfect happiness is very simple. Just a summer cabin in the countryside, near walking distance from a pond with pristine water, and the cabin filled up with good books. That's it.
Right.
Like a rural version of Albertine, maybe?
Exactly. Less the luxury. I won't ask Jacques Garcia to decorate my cabin. It can just be a wooden cabin. Very simple.
Right.
That would be a very different kind of country retreat. And yeah, Miriam, I just want to say too, it's so nice for us to have on the PROUST questionnaire a representative of Albertine Books in New York. The PROUST connection is one that we like to underscore when we can, even though knowledge of PROUST is not required and we don't even have to talk about him today. What is your greatest fear?
I have many right now, but I think the greatest remain climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a climate change, and and a good link with Albertine would be that it was it's the main theme of our festival last year, and it was wonderful to have all these French and American intellectuals coming to the bookstore and discussing what to do, how to take on it, and if there's still hope, and what are the daily actions that we can do at our very little scale to try to change the direction that we're taking.
Are there any particular actions that you learned about from that that have changed what you do even while you're in lockdown? Or
yes, we basically stopped eating meat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay.
Jonathan Safran Foer said that if cows were a country, that would be the fifth most polluting country in the whole world. So that was a good reason. That's something that everyone can do very easily. No, but just trying not to fly all over the country, take the cars. Being mindful. Just the easiest thing is plastic. Don't use plastic. Just buy a very nice tote bag and use it.
Yeah.
For grocery shopping, for all the things. There's many little actions that actually can really mind a lot to make a real difference in our on the planet for the planet's future.
Miriam, what is the trait you most deplore in yourself?
Oh, my ability to despise people.
Okay, well, we will have a question about that coming up. But right now, the next question is, what is the trait you most deplore in others?
The lack of empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now would be a good time for some more empathy.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And a good way to develop your empathy, to nourish your empathy is reading. I mean, literature is the best antidote.
Yeah.
So that's...
Yep.
Which living person do you most admire?
I would say Cédric Arroux, who's not an intellectual, but a farmer in France, who has hosted and sheltered and fed migrants going against the French law, taking risk for himself. Not out of fame, not for money, just because he thought it was the right thing to do, the human thing to do. So yes, for now, he's kind of my hero.
Yeah. What is your greatest extravagance?
I don't know how to travel light, so I think that's... I'm thinking about it because the summer is here and vacation are looming in the horizon. And yes, it's every year I travel with my house. I've always done that, and I don't know how to. I need everything.
You need everything. You're the person who arrives with 10 bags and then a few more bags and another bag. Okay. Yeah. I have a really close friend, and we travel together, and she travels like that, and I don't. So I actually am the one who gets to carry and check in all the bags, and that's totally fine. So it seems like a good extravagance to have. What is your current state of mind?
I'm hoping for a revolution.
Yeah, well, hopefully a revolution with a good outcome.
Exactly, a positive one. But I don't think I will.
Yeah.
Could be any worse than that.
What do you consider the most overrated virtue?
Charity. I think there shouldn't be need for charity. I think every human being should have his basic need covered. Like he should have a roof over his head, should have food in his plate, should have access to education, to free education and social healthcare protection. So there shouldn't be need for people to give to charity. There should be it should be part of the society. It should be everyone's duty to make sure that everyone's need is covered.
That's really interesting. I've never thought about that, but I do know there's a large critique of charity as kind of a form of narcissism, that it makes people feel good about themselves, and that's why people keep it in place, so they have a way to make them feel better.
And if you push it a little bit further, you see that if you see who's giving to charity, it's mostly a lot of it is corporate companies who, on the other side, are not paying, have benefit from tax deduction, and are not paying their workers the way they should do. And I mean, it's all for me, it is a very vicious circle.
Yeah.
It's the origin of a very vicious system.
Yeah.
On what occasion, Miriam, do you lie?
Every time I feel that that the truth would get me into greater trouble than the lie itself.
That seems like a reasonable calculation. I guess you probably don't want to give us any examples to record for the general public to hear.
Oh yes, I could. For instance, I swear to my parents that I would not get out during the lockdown in New York, whereas I've been going to Albertine about three times a week.
Now your parents will listen to this maybe and find out.
No. They're not on social media. I'm safe. We're good.
You be careful. This podcast may reach far and wide, and they may find out that you've been lying for the whole lockdown.
I think I may admit the truth. We're almost at the end of the lockdown. I've made it.
You've been careful in wearing your mask and gloves and socially.
Exactly.
Okay. Miriam, what do you most dislike about your appearance?
My legs.
Okay, really? I think that's the first time we've had the answer legs, and of course we can't see your legs on Zoom. I'm sure we would agree. It's your opinion. Have you always been self-conscious about your legs, or?
Yes, very much. Yes, especially and even more after seeing a Truffaut movie. You know, the one that started with a woman's legs. It's a very nice quote that opened. Ne tirez pas sur le pianiste, tirez sur le pianiste de François Truffaut. Les jambes des femmes sont des compas qui arpentent la terre. And I was like, yeah, and what about the ones that don't have good ones? Nice one. He's in this movie. He's obsessed by women's leg and always filming them from a. I mean, that's yes, no, it's legs.
Well, leave it to a French film director to leave a nice looking woman with a complex. Which living person do you most despise?
There are two. It's the Sackler's brothers. Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
The Sackler's brothers.
Oh, you know? Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
For now, it changes, but for now, yes.
Yeah.
The next two questions are very gendered, so this is late 19th century. What is the quality you most like in a man?
Empathy.
Okay.
And what is the quality you most like in a woman?
Empathy.
Yeah.
Okay. Which words and phrases do you most overuse, do you think?
In French, c'est chouette, and in English, great.
Okay.
Great.
So more or less synonyms. So for our non-French speaking listeners, yes, well, you're consistent across the languages.
And what or who is the greatest love of your life?
Stories.
Stories. Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, that is beautiful. When and where were you happiest?
Oh, I think the summer of my 10th, when a family cabin in Denmark, and there's nothing to do except playing around. It's completely lost in the land near the sea. And my parents had given me the 101 Nights, and it was 3 volumes, and I loved it. And what I loved the most is by the time I finished the 3rd volume, I'd forgotten the story in the first one. So it was just, I kept the whole summer reading. And my parents couldn't deal with it. I was like, Miriam, enough with the reading. You have to go outside, you have to play. It's the summer. We're going to confiscate the books if you keep going. And every day I would hit their breaking points. But yeah, it was the greatest summer.
Nice.
Oh, that's amazing. That's also very Proustian. You know, the Arabian Nights, as they're often called in English, is one of the most mentioned books in Proust's 4,000-page novel. And he, really? As you know, Miriam, as you know, Uli, Proust mentions a lot of books, and yet that book, you know, with those kind of endlessly absorbing stories that always present new variations on the theme, is one of the most important books within his great book. So it's fascinating to hear that a future scion of Albertine would start out life with a happy memory of reading that book over and over. That's wonderful.
Carrie, can I ask a follow-up question to Miriam? Do you think that people right now are already telling stories about our current moment, the lockdown, this pandemic? Do you find that people are already creating new stories?
I believe so, yes. I think it was already, the fear of the pandemic was also already in some subconscious of some writers. Yes, I'm pretty sure that we'll be reading about this exceptional situation and terrifying situation in the forthcoming years.
Yeah.
Which talent would you most like to have?
Oh, the skill of writing well.
Oh.
And I would love to. Above everything, yes. If I were able to, just to, tell stories, describe the words as I see it in a beautiful way, I would be very happy. That would be my.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
If I could be a little bit less sensitive, that would be a huge relief. Yes.
And you mean sensitive in what way?
Prompt to be a little less prompt to feeling outraged, to feeling aggressed. being capable of putting more distance between myself and the world, that would be way more comfortable. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Flaubert, to be able to go in your ivory tower and close the door. I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah, but I also think a kind of heightened sensitivity, it makes people very empathic. So it's the flip side of the ability to actually relate to the world in a kind of intense way.
But if you could control it, like say, this time it is not worth it. And just keep it for the very serious cause, that would already be a great plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be able to shut out the negativity and not have to empathize with all of that maybe all the time. Yeah, and you think Flaubert, do you think he was an empathic writer? I mean, the power of imagination, obviously, in inventing those characters is incredible. But what do you think about him as a figure of empathy versus distancing, as you said, putting himself in his ivory tower, Gustave Flaubert, looking for the perfect word for everything he wrote?
I think he was, by reading his correspondence, I think he's been in total empathy with a few friends, especially at the beginning in his youth. I forgot the name of his best friend. He traveled to Egypt with him, but here you clearly had a sense that they were yes, so close. He was everything happened to him that happened to his friend was happening to Flaubert as well, and yeah, as he grew older, he learned how to protect himself, and when you read the letters to Louise Collet, you feel you're almost begging for him for being a little bit more empathic. She was writing these beautiful love letters, and he was just keeping her at arm's length and protecting the space he needed to create. So he was definitely not. He's not a. I mean, I don't think of him as a hero in terms of political figure, or even of writer who was committed to the world. He was definitely not that, but was a genius. My God, I'm happy he was not, because I much prefer reading his books and. So he leave it to others to defend the noble cause. And as a human being, he didn't strike me as being especially sympathetic. When you read, especially in his correspondence as well, how he was quoting les frères Goncourt, the brothers Goncourt, for instance, that was a bit ridiculous. I felt a bit sorry for him that he couldn't get more dignity, and we couldn't see that he was way above all this literary circus that is completely meaningless. He was really he needed the attention, he needed the recognition, but at the same time, yes, I mean, it's pros and cons. Because, for instance, with Madame Bovary, he stood up for his work and was able to. I mean, he was facing the whole against the whole society and show courage and everything. But that's sometimes I wish he would have been a little bit more noble.
Yeah,
but of course, I forgive him.
You forgive him, but sometimes it's hard to learn about the personal lives of one's literary heroes, artistic heroes, and see that maybe they could have been better people than they were. What do you consider your greatest achievement?
I think in France, when I was working as a publicist, I contributed to help some writers getting the recognition they deserve. I think into a small capacity. It's of course it's a group. It was not only my work. It's a group team. But I think I made a little difference in that, and I'm really proud of it.
Cool.
If you were to die and come back as a person or a thing, what or who would it be?
I think it would be the Odyssey.
The Odyssey.
Yes, very modestly. So that I won't have to die or disappear again. It's just, that would be nice.
Where?
That must be one of the great answers we've gotten. That is a
I
great
think it is.
That's really,
It also almost sounds like you've thought that before. Like, have you ever sort of?
Yes, I was wondering if I could come back as a text, which text would it be? Because you don't want to get bored. You know, it's a text that you need to be able to read and reread and reread all over again. And I think I could leave a few lives in it.
That's for sure. That's the greatest answer. Where would you most like to live?
It changes a lot because I have a tendency every time I travel to a new destination, I say, oh, let's just move there. It's perfect. It's paradise. But so far it's yet for now I think I would say the Lost Coast in California.
Yeah.
oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
What is your most treasured possession?
My eyes.
Your eyes. Okay. And what do you regard as the lowest depth of misery?
I think it's not being able to provide for your family.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest, that would be my biggest fear if I had a family. And I know it was my parents' biggest. I think that's the worst situation ever.
Because you're hurting not just for yourself, but for the people you love the most.
No, not because of people I love the most, but because of people who live around me. I don't know how they're going through it. It must be completely. How it takes a responsibility to bring new people in the world, and you're not able to provide for their own security, for their basic needs. Yeah, I don't know how you. I don't know how you go through that.
Yeah.
What is your favorite occupation?
Reading, by far.
Surprise.
What is your most marked characteristic, do you think?
Speaking my mind.
Wow, nice. Nice. And what do you most value in your friends?
Sense of humor, and of kindness and generosity. Okay.
Who are your favorite writers?
It's impossible to answer, but if I had to pick one, the first one would be, of course, Ingeborg Bachmann.
Okay.
The Austrian writer. Second, it would be poets mostly. Paul Celan, Alessandra Pizarnik. I love novelists, and I read more novels than I read poetry, actually. But I think the most sublime form of writing is poetry. Everything is beautiful in a poem. They can't be. They manage to limit their writing to go down to the essential, and it's every sentence is just like move you to a point that the novel can't achieve. It's in a novel you have to go through sentence like La Marquise sortie à 5 heures.
Right.
You cannot avoid it, and even though there's passages that are beautiful, you don't get the la fulgurance that a poem can give you, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah. I would say yes, and among the works that are most personal to me are Bachmann, Celan, and Pizarnik.
Okay.
What's the third one? Sorry, what's the third author you said?
Alessandra Pizarnik.
Oh, okay.
She's an Argentinian poetess.
But Miriam, no one has ever Ingeborg Bachmann. It's interesting. It's kind of this slightly sort of existential, psychological fictions, short stories. So it's quite interesting that you picked that. It's an Austrian writer. It's very unusual. I've never heard anybody really connect that strongly to Bachmann, who was sort of.
It's also extremely political.
Yes.
She was the daughter of a Nazi, and all her work can be read in a tension between towards the good, towards the beauty, towards how to achieve and how to live through the shame, how to live, not the evil, but the darkness, and towards the light. And it's beautiful. She's also a novelist, and she wrote some of the most beautiful. My favorite text, I think, is Three Paths to the Lake, the last one of the collection of short story, and it's just mundane. It's about a woman visiting her father and noticing that he has aged. She's going through a love story that is about to end, And it's about, yes, about that, about time, about love, the passing of love, the passing of time. It's incredibly beautiful. It's so simple. It's almost like a poem in novels.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go back to rereading Bachmann. I haven't read it in a while. It's quite
I think she's one of the most underrated women writer I know. There must be many others, but.
Well, who is your hero, your favorite character in fiction, film, television? Some people have more than one.
I say I have two. I have Ulysses and Jo March.
Oh, okay. Ulysses. All right. So back to the Odyssey, and then do you want to say a little more about Jo March?
Yes, I mean, it's a novel that I can read. I can read again and again with the same pleasure than the first time I read it.
Little Women.
I was 12. I think the first time I read it in English, and I just wanted to be part of that family so much. I was going through their ordeal, and everything she says about the woman condition is still, I think, somehow still relevant today. It's just not only about the woman condition, but human condition, how to the burden of respecting the social, of playing the social game, and feeling of not fitting there, and it resonates with me so more than. It's not the best novel in the world. I will give you that, but I can't find another one that hit closer to home, I think.
Yeah.
But I love the combination of Jo March and Ulysses. It's because it's the epic tale of leaving one's home and finding oneself, and the other one of being in a home and finding oneself. This domestic and the epic. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, and the man who didn't have to obey really any social norms because he could just go from island to island, shape-shifting. Yeah, that's wonderful. Also, that's amazing. So you read Little Women in English when you were 12?
No, I first read it in French, in a terrible French translation. It was not even the complete work. I read it later again in English for the first time. It was I was 16, I think.
Okay.
I had more, my English was stronger back then, and but even in this awful French, I loved it.
I think, okay, isn't this right, Caroline or Miriam? Isn't there a Professor Baer that she studies with or something, Jo March?
Oh my God, I haven't read it in so long. Is there? Yeah,
yes,
do you remember this Professor Baer?
Yes.
It's
Uli.
He's her lover. I mean, he's the one that she shall eventually marry. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Uli.
And he has my name with an H. He's a German professor.
But I think it's in the novel. It's 2E.
Yeah.
And 2ER and H or something like
There's
that.
An H.
There's an H somewhere. Yeah.
H-A-E-R. So he has an extra H.
An extra H.
An extra H, which is of course like you don't pronounce it, so it's really my name.
Uli, God, I'd never thought about that. Does that mean, did that book have a special place for you growing up?
No, because I didn't really read it, actually. I grew up with this book, so I just know I'm just in it. So that's right. So that's actually, I'm going to have to reread it now, just with that, since it is my name as a German professor.
Yeah.
Which historical figure do you most identify with?
That I don't identify with historical figures because usually I admire them, but I don't put myself at the same level. I would say Diderot or Martin Luther King.
Oh, Diderot or Martin Luther King.
I love Diderot. He's one of the most fantastic person in French history, I think, and his fight for universal knowledge, for elevating the human spirit and everyone's spirit, making knowledge available to everyone. That's one of the most incredible and remarkable endeavor, I think. And Martin Luther King, of course, especially with what is happening now.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Who are your heroes in real life?
And he was in real life. I would go back to my first to Cédric Harou and all these anonymous person who were just braving the law and helping migrants and giving them what they can to help them survive.
So this is a farmer in France who's feeding migrants against government rules.
Yeah, he was actually arrested and tried for that. They created a délit de solidarité. Like a solidarity could be enough offensive.
Wow.
Yes, and thankfully there are many people like him doing that in the shadow, away from the camera, from the media, and all that, and trying to help as best they can. And these people are really, to me, they're really few.
Yeah. What are your favorite names?
Albertine and Balthazar.
And Balthazar.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't like Albert as much, or Albert doesn't have quite the same appeal?
I love Albert. I do like the sound of Albert more than Albert, especially because it was a generation of it was a name that was really used in my parents' generation and mostly my grandparents. So for me, I keep associating with older person, but Albertine, I found it so charming, a lot of musical and
can you say something about, I mean, it's the bookstore in Manhattan for French literature, but about the status of Albertine as a character in French culture? Is that so common that everybody would know what? No, she's
a first because she's a discreet. I mean, she's an elusive character in Search of Lost Time. So even people who have read in Search of Lost Time don't necessarily connect the store with her name with the store. She's not the first name that comes to mind when you think of Proust. But that's what I like about it. It's also because she's everywhere in Search of Lost Time, and at the same time not too visible, and that's what we would like to be too, in everyone's bookshelves. Somewhere all around the city, but discreet.
Yeah.
Caroline and I were at a conference at Columbia University where Caroline presented on the Proust Duchess, her book, and Carson, the poet, read the Albertine Workout, which is this little tiny, which I love, these little vignettes. Imagine Albertine's life kind of outside of the novel. It's quite beautiful, I think.
Yeah, it was it's been one of our bestsellers.
Okay.
I think mostly, I mean, some people, of course, know and Carson and want to read the text, but I think also because people thought they would find information on the bookstore.
That's funny. That is funny, and that's
we don't say anything.
Everybody wins.
Exactly.
Carson gets more sales. Albert gets more sales.
I love this kind of misunderstanding, So
I totally agree with you. Actually, I translated Rilke's letters a long time ago, and I said in the introduction, if people read the right books for the wrong reasons, they're still reading the right books.
Exactly.
So, and I always thought if they picked up the book because they misassociate something and then they read the right book, that's a blessing. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that is a good principle. I remember the first book I ever wrote was based on my dissertation from graduate school, and it was about the Reign of Terror, the very bloody, radical period of the French Revolution in 1793, 1794. And while I was finishing the manuscript, a few months before the book was supposed to come out, the Twin Towers fell in Manhattan, and the book was called Terror and Its Discontents. And I called my editor and said, this just seems so stupid. Why? Who would want to read a book now about the reign of terror when we're all worried about a very different kind of terror? And he said, oh no, I think it's great. Maybe somebody will buy it because they think it's about 9/11. So I think in his business, he had to hope that some sales would come from anywhere. I'm not sure that anybody bought it anyway, but it was one of those things, Uli, where my editor was very much hoping that people would buy it for the wrong reasons. So yeah,
I mean,
I'm glad.
yes.
I didn't even know you could buy the Albertine workout as a separate little work. It's like in a booklet form.
Yes, a New Direction published it. They made a beautiful edition of it. It's like a little, almost like a little cahier, a little notepad. It's
like 5 little
paperback.
Yeah, 5 tiny little, like almost little bound little paper books, and I think they come in a little case or something. It's very charming, isn't it? Something, or maybe that's another one of hers.
Or maybe they made I don't know this edition. The one I have is like a very, very thin paperback, and but yeah, almost how do you say?
Like a notebook almost.
Yes, like a notebook. Yes, a blue notebook. Exactly.
Notebook. Yeah.
I want to order that from the Albertine online store. I didn't even know. I have it saved in like a PDF somewhere, but that's wonderful to know. What is it, Miriam, that you most dislike?
Cynicism and vomit. I think I can't deal with any of it.
Cynicism and
vomit.
Vomit?
Vomit. I can't. I had more or less the same reaction to it. It's pretty.
What is your greatest regret?
Oh, that year I spent studying medicine. I was completely lost.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know you studied medicine. When was that?
It has absolutely, yeah. No, it helped me in organizing my work. In that sense, it was a good thing. We had to work a lot, and gave me some sense of efficiency. But other than that, it was terrible. It was really terrible. Yeah.
How would you like to die?
Peacefully. If I could die reading a book, that would be really nice. But I don't know. But peacefully, yes. If I could die peacefully.
Yeah.
I don't have any requirement in it. Yeah. While reading a book would be nice. Yes.
Do you have what is your motto?
Hang in there.
Hang in there.
That's a good one.
That is. We could all use a little bit of that esprit, especially today. Okay, so Miriam, we've added one question to the Proust questionnaire as it was originally printed and answered, which was, who would you most like to hear as a guest on this podcast? And ideally, it would be somebody alive, so that Uli and I could maybe ask them to come and talk to us. Is there anybody who you'd love to hear answer these questions?
Oh, that's a good question. I would go for Annie Arnaud. I would love to hear her answers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Do you think she would, as so a great French writer, do you think she would talk to us?
Oh, I think we could try. We could definitely try, yes.
So
she'd be amazing.
Say one thing for our listeners who may not have read. So she wrote, I think, The Years, it's called in English, or Annie Arnaud. Can you just say something about her as a writer? Because she's a really major writer for so many people now, but I think in America maybe hasn't quite made that breakthrough.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yes. I think now and I was happy to see that at least she's got the recognition from her peers. Writers like Zadie Smith deeply admire her, and she got some excellent reviews for the last book that was translated here. I think in France, she's fundamental in the sense of writing about, because the way she articulates, I think, the individual experience and a description and a portrait of the society, for me so far it really has been unmatched. What she did with The Years is really it's really a literary achievement, and the way she talks about the mutation of the society, about the shame of being outgrowing your own social class. She was born in a working class where there were absolutely no books at home, and becoming a professor, going to teach at university and all that, and also simply about a woman, about her life as a woman, being married, being divorced, having kids, and the way she managed to talk about all this is profoundly, I think, innovative, modern, moving all the time, and honest, and never she's never pulling the wrong chords. I mean, she's never being miserabilistic. I'm really in awe of her work, and I think it's gonna stay.
Yeah, she would be a great guest to have. I think I'd be a great person to answer these questions.
Yeah.
Oh yes, definitely. I can if you want, I could try to. I could definitely put you in touch with her American publisher and her French publisher I don't have her contacts.
No, it's even just the idea is great. But yeah, if you have the publisher contact info, that's wonderful. But most of all, it's just the idea. When we have guests on this podcast, it's because we're particularly interested to know what they care about, what they think about, what they love, what they value. So adding that question to us has been really a pleasure. And so we appreciate your answering that and answering all of these questions today during lockdown.
No, thank you. It was a lot of fun and a great pleasure. Thank you for having me as a guest. It was lovely talking to you. I missed you so much.
I missed you too. I want to see you in person soon.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Thank you so much. And now I imagine that I hope you can recreate where you would be happy, a little cabin in the country, just filled with books. During this lockdown, I hope you'll find a little opportunity this summer to go there, maybe something like that.
I hope Airbnb is going to help help me in my quest.
So we really want to thank you for being on the podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.